Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Friday the 17th. I believe it is the 17th of February. Time's flying. My name is Rachel Parker. My pronouns are she and her. I am an Anglican priest in the province of Alberta in Canada. I serve for the Anglican Church of Canada, the Diocese of Edmonton, for Dayspring Ministries, for St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Thomas Wainwright, and St. Saviour's Vermilion, all Anglican churches in this beautiful province of ours. I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about memories and those things that we hold close and dear to our hearts. I'm holding here a harmonica. I'm not going to try to play for you because I can't. This harmonica is probably 80 years old or older. This is the box it came in. It's falling apart. And it belonged, there we go. It belonged to my grandfather, who played the violin, which I have somewhere in this house, upstairs in the office. And he played the harmonica, and I think he probably played the spoons at one point too. But music was an important part of his life. He was a farmer in southwestern Ontario, and he had 7 children that lived, and he was also a carpenter. And he had massive, massive hands, and his fingers had black fingernails where he'd busted them up and things over the years as he made things. And he had his mark. His name was Joseph Almaray, and he had a way he would write the J and then the A and the R. They were all one thing. And wherever he went, he made his mark. And everywhere, every piece of carpentry he ever did, you'll find his mark on them somewhere. But he played music. And he wrote poetry. It wasn't great poetry. It was a farmer, a not educated class, maybe grade 8, if he got that far. But it was the poetry of one who sat down every night to write in his journal, his diary, and he'd talk about what the weather was or what was happening with his kids. When I was 4 years old, I had to go to sick kids, the hospital for sick children in Toronto, for some significant surgery. And later on in life, I found out that the day that I went off to have my surgery, he wrote in his diary that I had gone off to sick kids, and he was concerned for me. And that's an incredible gift to know that so many years ago, my grandfather, who was busy with so many other things, was thinking about me. But when he died, I inherited a few things. Well, our whole family, everybody sort of went and said, can I have this and that? And the harmonica was very important to me because he used to let me try to play. And I was awful. He was wonderful. And I am fairly certain that if I practiced and tried, I could learn too. I just have to find a place to do so that my husband and my dog don't try to kick me out. So we'll see when that may happen. But this idea that these things that we have, that we hold on to, that remind us so much of who we have loved. Another thing I have is my engagement ring. Right here. My grandmother, on my father's side, his mom, her name was Kathleen Louise. And my middle name is Louise. I was named after her, and it was her first granddaughter. She had 3 grandsons. She had 2 grandsons, and that was the first granddaughter. And she had another grandson, then 2 more granddaughters. But when she died, I was given her ring. And then when Rob and I were getting married, he was a starving student and I was a starving priest. And so I asked him, I said, listen, I've always wanted my grandmother's engagement ring to be my engagement ring. So he gave me this ring as our engagement ring. And I wear it almost every day. And these things, like the harmonica or the violin or the ring, and a blue sweater I have of my other grandmother's, they are reminders to me of where I come from. They are reminders to me of who I am, what makes me who I am. This harmonica takes me back many, many years to the farm when I was really little. And my grandfather and my grandmothers were still healthy. And on occasion on Saturday nights, they would push back that old farmhouse where the kitchen, sort of the open concept before it was open concept. The kitchen had a couch in it. The grandpa would have a nap on after lunch before he went back in the fields. And grandma had her little TV in there, because from 1 to 2 o'clock she would watch All My Children. It was her story. a soap opera that's not on the air anymore. And nobody would ever interrupt Grandma during her story. And yet, the other 23 hours of the day, she gave to people unselfishly. That was her only time when she sort of locked herself away there in her own little world to watch a whole different world unfolding in front of her. But I remember they'd push the table back and Grandpa would sit in the chair and he'd get his knee going and he'd start playing that violin. And then he'd put it down and he'd whip out the harmonica. And we would dance and we would clap and we would just goof around as grandchildren and children. Sometimes people would be playing euchre at the table and having a great old time. But these are things that remind me of my past. People that I've loved, people who have made me who I am. Part of, I think, why I have a strong work ethic is because of my grandfather, because he really did. And I admired him. He was someone that I looked up to and learned from. He made his mark. He would put his mark on anything, which wasn't just a sign of pride. It was a promise, because you knew that what he had done would be done well. And if it didn't, you could find him, because you knew exactly what carpenter did that work. And if something fell apart or something, you'd know you could where to go find Elmer. They went by their middle names for some reason in that family. And that was that sense of putting your mark on something, putting your name to it. It's like a handshake, the old-fashioned handshake. It really meant something. That if you put your mark to it, then you knew that you had given it all you could, and your integrity stood with your mark. And I learned that from my grandfather. When I look at my engagement ring, I remember my grandmother who had multiple sclerosis, and I think the first time they knew she had it was when my father was born, and she was pretty much paralyzed, and I believe she was blind for about the first 6 months of his life. And this was a woman who they told her, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And as soon as they did, she'd go ahead and do it. Her doctor once told her, famously said, Lena, you should stop traveling around and everything. And she marched to the doctor's office, went to the travel agent and booked herself on a bus tour. Because you just didn't tell her what to do. You didn't tell her to stop. Don't quit living, because that would just fire her up to live even harder. And from her, I learned the lessons of stubbornness in a good way, and a sense that don't let other people tell you what you can and cannot do. You yourself know what is in you to do and to give and how you're called to live. And that sense of having her with me is a reminder every day that I can't quit. I have to keep on going. I have to find those deep reserves of strength, because I'm called to do more. These things that we have, these symbols of who we are, remind us of who we are called to become. And in the life of faith, for me as a Christian, things like this collar, or if I wore a cross, would be a reminder to me, a symbol, like these things are, a symbol to me of whose I am, who I profess to be. I am a child of God. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus and the Holy Spirit. And if I do, and if I wear these things, like wearing a collar in public, or if I wore a cross, that would tell other people, like my grandfather's mark, that this is what you can expect of me. You can expect integrity. You can expect me to treat you with dignity. You can expect me to exercise patience. You can expect me to exercise hope. You can expect me to offer forgiveness and to ask for forgiveness where I have wronged you. These are just some of those things that being a Christian publicly tells the world about who I am and what they can expect of me. The marks that we have, the symbols that we carry, the cross we have, or the fish we might have in our earrings, or the bumper sticker that says something about Jesus, those are not just cutesy things that we do because we're part of the club. Those are reminders to us of whose we are and the promises we make to God every day about how we will live our lives. But they're also tales to other people about what they can expect of us. Like my grandfather's mark. Wherever his jar was, J-A-R, Joseph Elmer Ray, you knew he would stand up to that mark. That if it didn't last, if it if the work that was done, something needed doing more, you knew how to find him and you knew he would do it. And that's what it is to be a Christian. If we truly live the life we profess by the way we speak, the things that we wear, the symbols that we carry and put forward, then other people will know that we are safe people, that we are people they can come to for prayer, that we are people that they can trust, that are people that they will know that regardless of how we feel about them, whether their politics are different than ours or the way they think about the world, that they know that they will be safe with us, because we will not come after them, but we will come alongside them. So as we head into the weekend, I invite you to think about those symbols. What are those things that remind you of who made you who you are? And what are those symbols about you that help other people to know who you are? Have a great day. God bless. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you on Sunday for Gospel on the Go, or on Monday for Church at Home with Rachel.